Welcome back, everyone, to Merge Conflict, your weekly developer podcast, talking all things about Apple hardware and software.
It's our third most favorite topic. Hey, James, I'm sure everyone can't wait to hear how we feel about our new Mac Minis. We haven't done one of those episodes in a while.
Wow. I think it's been a while since we got our Mac Minis. It is my mostly daily driver, I would say, here for this podcast, for other recordings. It's runs. I have been long awaiting the big mega release, though, of software upgrades that upgrades my version light years into the future. Like right now, I'm on 15, but I'm going to jump 11 versions really soon.
It's 11 better. You are missing out on 11 years worth of work right now.
Well, this update goes to 11. So,
wow. Apple should take that one. Yeah. Hey, buddy, I installed the beta so that you don't have to, because turns out I actually ship a lot of Mac apps. And I got the most dreaded thing you can possibly get in your email, which is a bug report with videos from a user being like, nothing's drawing. And you're like, oh, God, now I have to install the betas.
Oh, no. And this is timely because Apple just announced, and we're recording on the 26th, that they're doing their Apple event on 9/9 at 10 o'clock.
Yeah.
So close. So that means that like things are going to be happening. And Apple, as we know, has been shipping closer to this event than ever before. Like before, you would be like, all right, it's going to happen on like a Tuesday, and then you can pre-order on a Friday, and then you got to wait 2 to 3 weeks. Now it is like pre-order now, get it on Friday. Like it is usually that quick. And what that means is that is whenever the new iPhone launches, that is when software launches. And like if it's happening in 9/9, that's September.
2 weeks, call it. Yeah.
That's crazy.
It is crazy, James, because I just installed the beta and I have not been testing on macOS. Now, I have been testing on iOS because that's a lot easier. You just put it on a device and you play with it, and it's fine. You get the glass effect. It's cool. Ooh. But when you're talking about Mac, you kind of got to put it on your dev machine, and that's when everything gets scary, because I have the pasta plate of wiring on my desk with every USB hub. We've talked extensively about USB hubs. So I've been a little bit afraid to install the beta. And the worst part is, like, yeah, you say it's when the iPhone's released, but it's like when the iPhone, it's not even when it goes on sale. So like iPhones probably won't be shipped until October or something. But the OS could come out pretty much any time after September 9th. Like Apple doesn't really give us as developers a heads up on it. So with 2 weeks left, I figured, it's probably about time I started testing all my apps and making sure that they're working well.
Well, you want to make sure that they, don't crash on startup. You want to make sure. I mean, the thing that I'm worried about at some point is like, imagining it's not going to happen for a while, but there's going to be some point in time where like Rosetta 2 is like not removed, but like highly discouraged. I assume that my apps still work. I can't, like my stream timer, I can't even build it anymore because it is literally off of an ancient build of Xamarin Mac that was Xamarin Forms, which never came out officially. That I have no idea, the code, I couldn't even imagine how to get it running. I don't even want to worry about it. I'm like, type of thing. I'd just rebuild it at this point, probably from scratch.
The good news is that apocalypse came 6 months ago or whatever, when Apple stopped taking builds from Xcode 15.4. So we were all forced to upgrade our builds. And thankfully, if you do, I know a lot of people, Maui people, are not doing Mac builds. I get it. I'm a weirdo. But if you do a Mac build, you actually get the ARM version now. So it creates a fat binary. So you're getting the x86 and the ARM. But what that really means is it just makes testing harder, because like, are you testing on an x86 anymore? And I don't even recall, to be thoroughly honest, if macOS 26 runs on the Intel processors. I think I either heard this is the last version that's going to be on Intel, or this version doesn't work on Intel. And my poor little brain can't remember which one it is, but I'm about to find out. I'm trying to resuscitate my current Intel Mac and see if I can get it to be alive again.
Wow. Yeah, I have no Intel Macs. I never have had. I had one, I guess, way back in
20,
the
yeah.
day, which would have been my 2013 MacBook Pro, and that has gone by the wayside. Yeah, I've decided to not upgrade anything at all. I'm relatively terrified because you tweeted a photo of the File Explorer, and I quickly closed out of that and continued to browse other things so I could, you know, like cleanse my mind of what I saw.
Okay.
I
Yeah.
did, I don't know what's happening. Like, are we moving forward? Are we moving backwards? Should we be concerned? I already have my qualms about Mac OS. And I've
Mhm.
been talking to Debbie at work, and Debbie is our advocate that focuses on Playwright, which is an end testing framework, which is delightful. And Debbie is a Mac person through and through.
Mhm.
And she recently has been testing a Windows ARM machine, like just doing like kind of the paces, like on and figuring out and going through it and this and that. And actually, that jump from I'm a Mac person to a Windows ARM machine, for me, it's not too bad. But because she is like a React TypeScript, like does a bunch of stuff, it's actually really complicated, like the ARM and this and that. Really spending a lot of time in WSL, so that's not necessarily like there's some smoothing that can be done there. Um, but like for me, going from like Windows to Mac, like as far as like software and things and ARM, I pretty much, is fine in
Mhm.
general. Just like all the other nicety things of like using an operating system, are complicated in my personal opinion. So it's interesting though, talking to her, because I feel like the struggles she's having from going to Mac OS to Windows are some similar things that Windows here. It's like, it's totally fine. I use it all the time. It's fine, right? But then there's
Yeah.
just some things that are like, this. And BHD Marquez
You got
just
there.
did a video which was about like switching, like switching from iPhone to Android or Android to iPhone, and how like each of them are competing, having similar features. They can circle stuff now, and you have journals on both. You have this and that, and like this carrier lock in and Blue Bubbles versus this, and this terrible Google event that they just did, which is weird. And love Jimmy Fallon, but odd. And now, what is interesting there is that I did that switch like 5 years ago. I did that switch, and there was that. And I think it's the same. I think if you switch from iOS to Android, you switch from Android to iOS or Mac, like it just takes time to get used to it. And like I've gotten used to this. I'm editing, I'm doing stuff. It's like I'm still more productive on my Windows machine in general. As far as like using VS Code, using agent mode,
Well,
using
yeah.
the browser, I just install a few widgets, things like that. It's fine. It's fine in general. However, like I feel as though a Mac OS has been up very additive in the last X amount of years. Because I've had a laptop for a long time. So we have widgets now. We have this. And I always felt like it was like, hey, Mac OS is getting a lot of these like nice iOS things that you know and love. You get the widgets here, you get this thing here, and you get that thing there, right? But now, are they like transforming it into something that we didn't ever want? Is it they're transforming it to the iOS more, but that's actually a bad thing? Or maybe you're just like, this is the best thing ever, and you love all bits and pieces of everything you've seen so far.
None of the above. Can I go with
Oh,
none? I'll take none. None,
okay.
Mr. Sajak. Um, yeah, I mean, switching's always hard just because you're used to what you're used to. Like you could write papers all day of which windowing metaphor is better, the Mac windowing metaphor, the Windows metaphor. In the end, it's which hotkeys are your fingers used to, and how do you use the mouse? How do you use the trackpad? I don't think there's really honestly big differences there. I personally prefer Mac. I was a Windows person for years, but I got used to the Mac way. Let's leave that. Let's table it.
Tabled.
Yeah.
I've said
Yeah.
my things for many a podcast here, and
Right.
and vice
So
versa. So it's okay.
yeah, and I'll say I'm going to be critical of Mac right now, but I'm still going to use it. Just because I do prefer it over Windows. I have Windows in a little virtual machine. I get to compare the worlds all the time, but I still prefer Mac. But yeah, I think you hit the nail on the head there, because Microsoft was brave back in Windows 8. They did the whole Windows Phone and Windows merger where all the buttons got huge and flat, all the text got huge. You got 2 lines of text per screen on your Windows machine, because they were still trying to figure out the UI metaphor for touch and all that stuff. But they were smart to do that 10 years ago, so they've just been refining it over 10 years. Mac is still trying to bring in the iOS and iPad OS stuff. And you can see that in just their versioning. They've finally synchronized the versions of Mac OS and iOS and iPad OS, if you want to call that thing that. And yeah, there's still growing pains because I feel like there's a dualism in that company where Mac is supposed to be the professional workstation. So the buttons are supposed to be small. The text is literally smaller. It's a higher density of information. Control input is assumed to be more accurate than on iOS and things like that. And those differences used to be reflective in how you built UIs for the Mac. And as they try to merge these worlds, it's feeling rough. I'll just say that, like it's feeling like the Windows 8 days. Not quite as bad. The text is still small. They haven't gone giant font on everything, but you feel it. You feel like there's one team at Apple that really wants to make giant font, and another team being like, back. We're going to stick with our size 12 font. No size 16 over here. But like, you really feel that because you mentioned widgets. That's hilarious because ever since I installed macOS 26, I've had these 3 widgets just staring at me. I really don't even know how to turn them off or how to customize them, but they're just sitting there staring at me every day.
I have the keyboard battery, and it's ginormous, right? It's like huge because I also have like high DPI on this monitor, so everything's big already because I'm old and I can't see, and very well. My eyes are strained and coming into 40. And yeah, I had this huge thing, and I was like, I was 39 not too long ago. Now it's 38, but I can clearly see it. But there's the widget team is like, let's go big fonts. You know what I mean? But yeah, it's also weird too because you can get there and you can edit them, but then also that's a little funky. And then also like sometimes you can hide them, but then sometimes they show up because you just happen to be on that screen that like they want to be there now. Like you don't.
Well, now they're baked onto the desktop now. They used to be hidden under like the little click the button screen, and I never used widgets because I'm not going to click a button. What am I, an animal? Yeah. But now this is like live desktop. This is Windows 95. We're bringing the internet right onto your desktop, baby. And so that's okay. But then they also went for the glass theme. Now, I should say I have a Starfield as my desktop wallpaper. And how many colors are in a Starfield? Technically 0.
Sorry. Oh, you get some. Well, there's stars. There's got to be some white and some blacks.
Right, which aren't technically colors. Those are just intensities. So, how do all my widgets render, James? As
I don't know. I have literally no idea.
Yeah, right. Because the glass theme's supposed to be all refractive. It pulls out the imagery from your background. So mine are all 50% medium gray. Just gray. Gray sitting there being all gray. Because the photo effect just doesn't work. I guess absolutely no one at Apple ever tried a Starfield background. And I will send you a picture so you can see my lovely gray world that I live in. But it's funny. It just feels rough in those kinds of ways, like... This is something they could have caught earlier. They could have done a little bit something, add a little bit of color hue to, or literally anything, but it's just 50% gray across the board.
Does everything feel like similar? Like, does it all feel the same because of this? Like when you have iMessage open or FaceTime open or like a Safari or some things, is it all feeling like it's the sameness and there's like a lack of identity because of the glass identity?
No, because honestly, they didn't add nearly as much glass to macOS as I kind of hoped, because I'll say it this way. You should either stick with the professional look, which is real clean lines, really tight typography, really subtle gradients everywhere, or you should go all in on glass. What they've done is went for the middle ground. A little bit glassy, but not enough. And so I did post that screenshot on X. And it's hard to see just from a screenshot, but all you really see are poorly rendered borders and no glass effect. Because even though this is an M4 whatever Mac Mini, it's still not bothering to run the pixel shader that is the glass effect for whatever reason. I can't comprehend why. But so what you're getting instead is the flat design aesthetic with a million borders
Are
on
you missing a setting somewhere? Like,
it. I wish.
there's got to be like, because I looked at what you had, and yes, there's different shades of gray, but I feel as though there's like a setting that's like the gray tone. What's interesting about the photo that you sent on X is there are so many rounded board. Like, there's so
Yes.
many rounds. Like,
Rounds.
everything is so round. There's rounds inside of rounds inside of rounds. And the funny part is that when you have something selected in your favorites, like, you have movies, pictures, Dropbox downloads, projects, it's like
Mm-hmm.
default blue color.
Yeah.
It's like default blue selection that's never changed forever. Like, can we, do something
Right.
here? I
So
know
I'll
mine's
just say
pink, obviously, but still.
I'm running dark mode because that's how I roll. I'm running the multicolor theme because I allow apps to add their own accent color. Otherwise,
Uh-huh.
you can tell every app be blue, every app be orange. I'm allowing the apps to decide from themselves what they should be.
Hmm.
I am running the default icon and widget style. So there is a clear style that I could switch to. And I could send you the photo, but you're just going to be like, well, that's absolutely no different. So it's a little bit pointless, but I will send you the tinted, which I think just makes them render kind of even worse than what you're probably imagining.
Huh. Very
So
fascinating.
yeah, it feels a little bit half implemented. If there was actually the glass theme running, it could look good. It could look interesting, but it's not. It's
Now
borders and grays.
you have the glass on your phone as well.
hmm
And how's that treating you?
I don't love it, but at least it's interesting. So,
Yep.
like when you're playing a video and the little play button appears, you get that fun refraction effect because it's modeling the play button as if it's a squished sphere glass, like a blob of glass, molten glass sitting on a table. And so you get fun little lighting effects and all that kind of stuff. And that's what I'm saying, where macOS is only halfway there because they didn't bother with any of those fun little effects. You don't get the refraction effect on macOS. All you get is very subtle gradients. For example, on the sidebar, we used to use what they would call the thin material on the sidebar of most apps. The sidebar is just the thing that lists out all the little bits of an app you can get to. And at first, that was very garish in the early versions of Mac. It was a little too transparent. And then I feel like they got to a nice sweet spot in the last couple versions of Mac where it would pick up your desktop a little bit, it would pick up the background apps a little bit. I think it was allowing through just enough stuff to feel like a thin material, which it's modeling. And even at the API level, as developers, we can say thin material, medium material, thick material. And that just controls how blurry and how much color pulls through from the back surface. The default here with the glass effect is ultra thick, meaning not much bleeds through at all.
Huh.
But at the same time, the pixel shaders are poorly implemented, so it still flickers whenever you drag the window. Even though it's pulling in very little content, it's still flickering. And all of that is quite contrary to the glass effect on iOS, which is a very crystal clear kind of glass where you're basically seeing through the objects into the background. So it's a weird juxtaposition. Like, I feel like the design team either maybe they went full glass. Like, I remember full glass. Man, I worked on Windows Vista. You want to see glass? The unreleased Longhorn versions of Vista. If you didn't work at Microsoft, you never got to see these. They were glass, man. They were crystal clear glass. Everything was blending in from the background. It was wild and it was awesome. It was kind of futuristic. This is not that. But I feel like the team probably tried that at first. Everyone's got to try. And then I remember when Beta 1 first came out for iOS, they got a lot of flack. Like, it's unreadable. The control center screen is this. So they would try blurring more, layering more, blah, blah, blah. And I feel like they got very conservative for macOS. Which, again, I don't know. It's weird because, like, macOS, yeah, it's supposed to be the workstation. It is supposed to be the conservative one. But when you're in this halfway implemented world, it's trying to be glass, but it's not glass. So it just feels awkward. And that's what I was trying to say in my tweet, which I didn't articulate it well at all.
Yeah, it's really fascinating because, when you're on your phone and you're you're moving. There's a lot of motion already in navigation. Inherently, though, on a desktop, even a laptop, you have, like you said, a lot more real estate, a lot more area to put things, and you have really precise controls. Even with a trackpad, that is a much more concise and accurate in touch input, because it's not your finger, right? You literally have a cursor that you're moving on there, and like Macs don't have touchscreens, so you literally can't do that. So they're not made for that. So I do wonder if they're in between a rock and a rock, which would be a hard place. So two rocks, they're in between two rocks, two hard rocks, and they're in between that because honestly, if you really, really think about it, do we really need, or would it be user friendly even to have so much motion and so much transparency in such an accurate, concise desktop and laptop experience? Like, did they try it? And unlike the phone, where there's naturally lots of motion and you're scrolling and things are animating in and out, on a desktop, it actually doesn't make a lot of sense because you are dragging your mouse around, right? And you don't really want things to be moving and sliding and doing things in general. And you could think about it as like the tabs, right? It's like it does the animation, it does this stuff, or like sliders or whatnot. Like, actually, on a desktop, those elements don't work. Like, when you think about it, there's a lot of people that are like, what I really want to do is I want to take my WinForms application, I want to put it on an iPhone. And you're like, that doesn't make any sense because that is for a desktop and that is for this, right? The challenge of the Flutters, the React Natives, the Mauis of the world is how do you make your great mobile application be great on the desktop? Like, that is like the challenge. And that's why like literally the UI toolkits are different inherently because you need precise control. Like if you, for example, use VS Code in the browser, like on an iPad, right? You have vscode.dev and you're thinking about your folder and file explorer there. You're dropping down, you're doing things like inherently that is harder to do on an iPad, not because VS Code.dev is that way. It's because like the controls and the mechanisms are made more for concise, accurate input. So inherently, when you think about all this glass and movement and fluidity, like I think about that guy, the designer guy. It's a glass. It's so amazing. Like inherently, I think it does look pretty good, especially in a fancy promo video. However, I'm really thinking about, is it additive? Like, is it beneficial to my experience? And I can't really tie it in. Like, I guess on static things, it would be there, but I don't want things moving around or shaving around or things like this. I actually want to really know when my mouse is inside of a hit radius. And you also have this other thing, which is my mouse is very different than Frank's mouse because I go in and I bump my mouse size up to this huge thing. So I don't even know where my thing is. Like everyone's hit radius is a little bit different and this and that. My mouse versus your mouse versus like trackpad, this and that, and like single tap this and all these other things. So I do think it is very different where you can be much more concise in these things. So the only thing I can really imagine is I don't know. You also have this other problem too. I think this is where I'm not a UI designer or anything like this, but also I'm thinking about how I use my Mac and how right now my experience using my Mac is so different from you using your Mac on your display versus using on here and the apps and how they implement it and the transparency. Like, do I want that type of thing already? Because already like there's transparency on these widgets that are going in. Like I can see through them. I can make them out. But if I look at like, let's say rectangles, which is a great application, one of the best, it's one of the best Mac applications you can buy. I have Rectangles Pro. It's so good. I gave the developer $5-10, whatever it is. So good.
Nice.
Now there are tons of keyboard shortcuts. Now we already mentioned, Frank, that I have this at high DPI, which means everything is ginormous. It is actually relatively difficult to see. Like right now, we're in Zencaster, which means I'm in dark mode, which means that we have a gray, which is transparent, which is going through to like a black or a gray, which is inside of Zencaster. So actually that gray on transparent, gray on black, which then goes into like a pink, I have on the edge of like a pink title bar. actually it's a little bit difficult to read like that inside of
Yeah.
it. You know what I mean? If I was
Yeah,
further
yeah.
away, like I can see it, but some of those caricatures are pretty specific because it is a light gray compared to like where the other things are. So that is like very fascinating to think about. So making it harder to see just for like the glassy effect, I bet that's a lot of hard differencing too, because you also have to imagine how far away are people from their monitors compared to their phones, right? That is the other part too. I mean, already Apple is telling me all the time that I need to move my iPhone farther away from my face, which is healthy, I know, which is good. But how far
Right
away
up
in
there.
general? Yeah. Oh, and you sent me a photo, Frank. You sent me a photo in
Well,
iMessage
I
that
wanted
is
to say,
showing
because
something.
you were talking about how
Mm,
we don't scroll around in desktops, but
mm,
many years ago, Apple added dynamic desktops, and they're supposed to be a little more fluid, a little bit more motiony. And of course, there's a new Tahoe. So I wanted to just show you what it looks like with the default wallpaper, because yeah, my wallpaper is a little silly, a Starfield. But I just wanted you to see it doesn't look that great with the default wallpaper either. It's still doing the glass effect,
right.
where it's basically just turning all our apps grayscale. There is, although I'm sure a designer could argue all day it's not just grayscale, it's basically just a grayscale. So just take the luminance of your color, throw all the color information out, and stick with just the luminance, and that's how it's rendering. Which is important to know as an app developer. If you spent a lot of time designing your widget and perfecting your color scheme, doesn't matter, throw it out, because Apple's going to throw it out. So what you need to do, and this is actually good UI advice anyway, to be honest, you need to design your UIs in black and white again, because that's how it's going to render a lot of the time, especially for the widgets. And it's always been good advice, because color can be, if you're laying out a UI, always do it in black and white so you don't get distracted by the colors. But then eventually add your color theme to it. Nowadays, you want to lay it out in black and white, because if you do a lot of, let's say I do like oranges and greens and yellows, and they're good and contrasty when the hue is involved. When you take away that hue channel, all of a sudden that contrast goes away too, because you're relying purely on the luminance of those colors. And green and orange can have the same luminance, and they're not going to be distinguished from each other. And so you're going to have to make sure to test all your apps basically in grayscale, which is a little bit weird and sad. Um, so there's a lot of little gotchas like that with macOS 26. The toolbar got bigger. The way the toolbar renders its icons, sometimes it's the glass effect, sometimes it goes into that black and white mode. So if you had color in your toolbar, well, that's kind of user optional now.
Mm-hmm.
If you had color in your sidebar, that's user optional right now. If you're coding your app correctly, of course, you can just custom draw everything, pretend you're a web app, and then it doesn't matter. Like VS Code is
Yeah.
not going to change, because VS
Yeah.
Code just renders as an HTML app.
Well,
But
there are some native UI pop-up dialogues,
fair.
like when you do the model selection, those are native dialogue pop-ups, and because if you have VS Code in dark mode, but your desktop's in light mode, those will render as light mode because they're funneling that.
Yeah, so it's a little bit annoying, because I love native UI. I like matching the operating system, but to your point earlier, Mac didn't used to be customizable. To be blunt, they said this is what your desktop should look like. Beautiful black buttons, white background, pinstriping, because that's fancy, and maybe we'll throw in some blue accents here or there. And that was kind of, constraints breed creativity. It kind of felt good
Mm,
as an app developer, because you knew what a native app UI looked like. You could tell a Linux app running as a Mac app. You could tell a Windows app that was ported over to Mac. You could definitely tell a web app. But now it's just a design mishmash of everything. You can't, and with all the customization now, it's hard to tell as a developer what's even going on anymore. Is the user going to see my color icons, or are they going to see black and white versions of my icons? Will there be transparency in the sidebar? Who knows?
yeah.
It's changing per month right now. So I don't want to sound like I'm just complaining the whole time, because I am just complaining the whole time, but designing an app is very hard now. Part of me almost wants to make it an HTML app. Like, the sidebar's black and you're getting color icons. Deal with it, because Apple
Yeah.
can't decide what's going on. So I'm just going to decide for you. I'm not going to do that. I love native UIs. I'm going to stick with native UIs, but now I have to test not only the ARM version of my Mac, the x86 version of my Mac, but then 8,000 permutations of UI modes that my app can be presented as now.
Yeah, I think that what makes it difficult too, if you are doing cross-platform applications, already been a little bit hard, is the real implications. And what I'm going to be most fascinated about in this change is how applications react to this UI and what applications look like. Because, like it or not, for both Google and for Apple, the Apple and Google designers that design Android and iOS and macOS that are like, here's how your app should look, are not the designers of the millions of applications developers, right? There are companies that have specific design aesthetics and style and branding and look and feel. And in this instance, when you are fundamentally changing, and Google's done this too, right? So it's not just and Microsoft, everyone's done it, right? Everyone's done it. So everyone's guilty. But these changes don't happen that often. But in our year 2025, when application developers are trying to move faster, having more technical debt on design that applications are not, applications that have been around for decades make it challenging, right? Yeah. And you still want your applications to fit in to it. And I feel like there's still even applications I use that aren't necessarily even super adherent to Apple's current standard guidelines at the same time. Like in general, and they've just updated recently. Like I just was using Rover recently, and like they're like, oh, I'm like, this app is much better, but it looks completely out of place. It's just like, and this our app looks exactly the same between this and that, right? Like this is the style they're going for. So I do feel like there's this technical debt. And in the same time, in the year of 2025, when we as developers are struggling to integrate the latest AI features and stay up to date, and we're trying to put in new store kits and new Android billing libraries, and we have to add new screenshots and do this and new reviews. And I just got something from Google today that's like, now you got to verify. There's verification. Send us all your license and this and that for the Play Store, right?
Yeah.
I swear it's not a phishing scheme. It actually is. I didn't do it yet, but it's coming, right?
It feels like a phishing scheme. Yeah,
it definitely does. But it feels as though, this is my James get off my lawn moment, is we have the tools to move faster than ever, but we're drowning in debt from all angles. We're just drowning in App Store debt and UI debt and new feature debt. Like we just want to build cool stuff, but it's like we have thousands of different form factors to deal with. And now we have foldable phones, and then we got this thing and that thing and things on our face. It's just like, how do we focus and build cool stuff? I got in to mobile development because it was this revolution of this supercomputer in my pocket. And it's gotten more complicated, right? And it makes it harder as this is where I think it comes into, it gets harder as an individual developer to really craft applications on these multiple platforms and keep up with them. Like you could do it, just keeping up with them. Even if you're using a multi-platform UI, or even if you're using native UI, like you could be like, oh, I'm a Swift developer, so I don't have to worry about this. Even then, I talk to companies all the time. One, there's not that many applications that are like brand new from scratch, file new, right? There's tons, but like big, huge applications like your Snapchats of the world and whatever, like they're not file newing, right? There are applications. They're still getting rid of their Objective-C code. They're still getting rid of their Android X, like slow over time while they're trying to keep up. So how do you add new features while doing this? So this is where it makes it difficult. And if we as users are like, I don't know, how fast do you jump in, right? Apple's giving you this year grace period. How fast do you jump in? Do all of your applications, Frank, start to be glassy and look this new Mac world? Or you're like, I don't know, I got to hold off. I don't know.
I wish they did, because, part of my complaint for being only half glass is I'm going to put in a ton of effort to make sure my apps are compatible, because like I said, the toolbar icon size changed. That sounds so trivial to anyone who's never worked on this, but like my apps work on macOS 13 plus. So I got to go back and test against all those versions to make sure nothing's clipping. Everything looks good in all these different UI styles and all that. So I'm going to put a bunch of effort in to make sure that mine looks good on macOS 26. But I'm going to put all that effort in, and all I get in reward is kind of a poorly rendered border around all my buttons. Like, I don't even get the cool refraction thing, you know? I wish my window was 10% uh 10% opaque. I wish it allowed more light through. Because
Yeah.
then it'd be something fun. I'd be like, oh yeah, okay, this is the modern world. We're back to Windows Longhorn. Cool. And now I can do some weird effects, you know, maybe the circuit background would be clear. That'd probably be terrible, but maybe I would go for it and just at least see what it's like. But no, to your point, it's all this like little busy work. Like I'm gonna have to put in a ton of work for basically a very superficial improvement. And I'm all for aesthetics. I'm all for making things look good and advancing with the time, but this is quite a bit of work for just next to nothing, to be perfectly honest. On iOS 26, it's going to be even more work, but at least I'm going to get that cute little refraction effect on my buttons. On Mac, I'm putting in work and I'm getting nothing for it.
Yeah, that feels like a bummer. I do feel like when we went through the last skeuomorphism to flat design and this world that we're living in, kind of currently, it's like, you did get significant, like, wow, my application is really transformed. And I feel like it's really this one, and we've been obviously evolving slowly over. Yeah, it's really fascinating. I will see how it goes. Maybe we're just completely wrong. I don't know. I mean, maybe they transform everything in the next month or two, and it's just like, wow, it's amazing. And we come back later. We'll see. I mean, this is coming out on the 1st of September, so we're a week away, right?
Yeah.
So in 2 podcasts from now, we'll actually know what Apple announces. Is it just the new iPhones? Is it something else? And we're not getting new Macs, obviously, but like, like
Okay.
what is up? So we'll see what happens.
And I always find out when I do my testing, when I go back to macOS 13, just to see like how it runs. And that's when I can tell like, oh, that's how toolbars used to render. Ooh, how ugly was that? So that's the fun part for me, is going back to the old versions and seeing how those things look. I do want to end on a positive note, because I just said a lot of negative things against my most beloved of all companies.
Oops.
Um, our M4s, James, run Apple Intelligence so well. This is the first time I got to actually run my cross intelligence library actually on the Mac. I wrote it
Oh,
for the
cool.
Mac. I designed it for the Mac, but I never tested it because I didn't have the new version of Mac running. But I baked it into Kelka a little while ago, brought it up, had the AI run, and man, fast,
Nice.
James.
That's
Yeah,
great.
so it was really cool. So I'm willing to tolerate all this glass nonsense if I get to put Apple Intelligence into more of my apps.
What I'll be interested in is on 9.9 is like which route do they go? Are they going to be pumping up some of these new AI features that are built in? Are they going to be talking about glass
Yeah,
again? Are they just going to be talking about new devices and that's it? Is it a little bit of everything? What's
yeah,
the blendability? I mean, all that being said, we'll get the new operating system. Here's what's going to happen. We're going to get it. We're just going to adapt to it over time. We're going to
of
love it. We're
course.
going to hate it.
Yep.
It's going to just grow. Everything's going to evolve over time. It is what it is. But just like anything that's new, any change is hard, right? It could be the most amazing thing in the world, but it's still new. It's still different, right? And I think
Yeah.
that's something that will take time to adjust, because you've used the thing that you're using for so long, so you're used to it.
Yeah.
At the end of the day, and when it changes, it changes. And why do you think that basically for the last X years, 100 years, 50 years, 40 years, whatever it is, like we all move the seat in our car up in distinctly one or two ways. There is a lever on the front right side underneath our thing that we can slide back and forth, or on the left, you move up or down. Like, you know what I mean? If we fundamentally
Mm-hmm.
change how you move seats in your car, like, how do you do rentals? We've trained this way of doing it, right? It's like this: you turn on your car and like basically one of two ways. It's either a push button and like the push button, or there's like that, like fundamentally you change things, you gear things. I know some of the electric cars are a little bit different, but even that is a huge learning hurdle, right? The first time I was in a rental car, I was like, what am I doing this EV? I have no idea. So, but I adapted, because actually, surprisingly, many of the things are
Yeah.
technically pretty similar. Even if they have new fancy things, they always have like this backup, which is like the familiarity zone. It takes time to adjust over there. We're humans. That's how our minds work. We like familiarity. So we'll see how it adjusts. But I will say, man, I do like my Mac Mini being, I do like, I have, I still like my main drivers, my main work drivers, that Windows dev box, which is a super tiny little machine. This little tiny Mac Mini, like I love my desk being so clean. I mean, what's not right now clean because it's got a bunch of paper on it. But as far as like my aesthetics in the space under my desk, like it is a vibe that I really am appreciative. So like say what you will, and I'll say what I will about Mac OS or even the new versions, or even if you're not Windows Pro, what you say about Windows, like these super powerful, tiny little machines. I really like that part that we're going in the hardware space. I can adjust to any software over time, but
Mhm.
man, like it's crazy to think about how much power is in this tiny little machine that's just like sitting right there in both the Windows ARM machine and then this Mac ARM machine. It's bananas.
I'll agree with you. So for the very last time, I'll say that's why I wish they ran the pixel shaders. Like this thing can run a stupid refraction pixel shader. It is
Yeah.
not a lot of math, so it's just run it, Apple.
We'll see when we get that gold master. All right. Well, that's going to do it for this week's merge conflict. I think that let us know what you think of the betas if you've installed them at all. I've not. All I've seen is living vicariously through Frank Krueger. So go to mergeconflict.fm. You can write into us there. I think we have an email inbox somewhere. And then more likely, you can go to our YouTube, which is youtube.com/mergeconflictfm. Now, if you go there, you'll find two things. You'll find one, that all of our podcasts are there. You can just see us, hear us. We don't do anything fancy, but we are inching closer. We've been doing really good. We're inching closer to our monetization goal. We're at 734 subscribers. We have a goal by the end of the year of 1,000. So we appreciate people stepping up to the plate there. That's been pretty cool. Good comments in general that have been coming in. So appreciate the comments that are coming in as well to all the things. So we find good comments. We reply and we will answer them on the podcast. So go off and do it. So I think that's gonna do it, Frank.
That sounds lovely. I can't wait to hit 1,000.
All right. Well, that's gonna do it for this week's merge conflict. So until next time, I'm James Montemagno.
And I'm Frank Krueger. Thanks for watching and listening.
Peace.